Hello, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon. This is the bucket.io webinar, and I'm your host, Jeremy Estes. And today we're going to be talking about actually, we're finishing up our series. We're finishing the Building Bucket series. This is part 3 of 3, where we talk about configuring and publishing your segmentation funnel. So, exciting. Wrapping up series is always fun. And you guys are here for, I don't know, maybe it's the best one. We'll find out. So, real quickly, before we get things kicked off, I want to kind of get moving here because we got quite a bit to cover. Can we real quickly, if you guys can hear me and see my screen, could you let me know in the chat, please? And let me pull the chat up so I can hear you. Or see you. Chris, thank you. Jonathan, good to see you. Thank you. Glad you can hear. Steve, there he is. It's not a webinar without Steve. It is not. And I'm glad you can hear and see me. All right. Cool. Looks like at least enough people for me can hear and see me. So we'll kick this thing off. This is being recorded. So like I said, if you're listening to this as recording, you are on the Building Bucket Series Part 3. Configure and publish your segmentation funnel. If you've never been on one of these before, I will be doing a one-on-one call invite at the end of this webinar, so stick around for that. At the very least, you will get a link so that you can schedule a one-on-one call with a bucket specialist. That'll be either myself or one of the even smarter people that I work with. We will do a Q&A at the end of the call. What I'm going to try to do, we've got a lot of ground to cover. I'll be building inside of Bucket. Again, this is the building the funnel series. So we will be in Bucket. I'll keep the chat open and try to answer questions as we go. But if you have questions that are maybe further along in the topic or don't go with what we're talking about at the time, what I'll do is wait till the end and we'll do a Q&A. But rest assured, if you have a question about Bucket, it will be answered on this call. All right? But that said, by the end of this webinar, you will know how to connect your funnel to your email service provider. I'll show you how to add your Facebook pixel, how to add Google Analytics, and then finally how to rename your funnel and customize your metadata. So we're going to have a lot of fun here today, folks. All right, first of all, let's do this. Let's do a quick series recap, okay? Because we've covered quite a bit of ground, right? We've literally gone through and built a funnel. I'm gonna do a quick look at it here in a second before we move on. But here's some of the things we've covered, and we have the recordings for all of these up on the website. You guys should have received links to these already. But the first thing we talked about was planning out your funnel in advance, right? And then to start with your outcomes, right? You can't really build a segmentation funnel if you don't know what the segments are and you don't know where people are going to go, right? We've walked through creating a new funnel using the bucket.io templates, which makes things a million times easier because instead of building it from scratch, all you've got to do is customize your templates by editing text and copy versus trying to create all the planning and plugging everything in and connecting it all together. So those are the things we've covered so far, and now we're going to put the last touches on this and get this bad boy up and running. So let's do this. The first thing that we're going to talk about today is connecting your funnel to email, connecting Bucket. And we're going to start with doing it direct. You guys may have seen this before. What I'm going to do here is I'm back in Bucket, and I'm going to click on Settings. And then I'm going to click on Integrations, because Bucket currently integrates directly with MailChimp, Infusionsoft, Ontraport, Drip, and ActiveCampaign. All right, and so I know a lot of you have been asking for these over the last couple of months, I guess. That's the right time frame. And as you can see, you ask, we listen, and every time you've commented your favorite email service provider, that has been heard. So we're going to talk about connecting with one of these today. Sounds to me like we've got a lone voice asking for his favorite, which in this case I've got Drip. So do I already have Drip connected? I do. Drip is connected. So unless I hear otherwise, I'm going once, going twice. Anybody else, do you have one of these that you want me to connect and do? We've got a vote for Drip. I'm going to give it 5 more seconds. 4, 3, 2. Convertkit is not a direct, Steve. So we'll get to Convertkit. I'll show you guys how to do Convertkit and others through Zapier, but we'll get to that in a second. All right, so let's do this. Let's do Drip. So as you can see here, we've already added Drip, and if you haven't done that already, all you've got to do is just drag Drip over and add your credentials. You'll add your API key and your account ID here, and then save it, and or you can click this little check API key, and Bucket will just make sure that it's valid, right? And then click save, and from here, all we've got to do is add it into your funnel, all right? Same thing goes with Ontraport, Infusionsoft, ActiveCampaign, and MailChimp. All you got to do is literally just drag them over, insert the information, and then you have access to it in your thing, in your funnel. All right, so let's do this. Let's jump back over to our funnel. So I'm going to go back to segment, and I'm going to grab the funnel that we created the other day, which was the 12/5/2017 building bucket demo, right? Remember that? This is why we name these things in ways that it's easy to find. And I'm going to click edit. And so remember, we built this. We used a template to build out this this short multi-lead capture, multi-outcome segmentation funnel, which what were we selling again? Take the guessing out of dressing. That's right. Look your best. So this was for someone that was on our last webinar. She does personal style. So we just kind of created a little customized funnel around that. I know this picture is not the world's greatest. We're kind of on the fly grabbing stuff. So that's why it looks like this. It obviously should look a billion times better. But anyways, so what we're going to do now is we're going to take this. The good news is we have all the copy, everything's where we need it to be. All the questions are built. I'm going to close that, and we're going to come over here. And when it comes time to connect your email marketing service to your funnel, what you're going to do is you're going to click on Configure. All right? And then if you're using one of these direct integrations, like we are here, we're using Drip, you'll come over to where it says Direct Integrations. So you basically just highlight over this menu over here, and it'll bring all this up. And then you'll click on Direct Integrations. All right, you see how I already have these two. What happens is if you have them added in on your account, you'll see them pop up over here. And then you'll decide which one you want to use for this specific funnel. All right, so we're going to be using Drip today. So I'm going to click on Integrate. And just so you guys know, they're pretty much all the same. There's some slight differences as you go through, based on Infusionsoft and ActiveCampaign, MailChimp, and Ontraport. There's some basic stuff, but the good news is there's some minor differences, but those differences are based on your email service provider. So there are things that you'll probably recognize right off the bat. So for this one, in Drip, we're going to we have the option to tag our outcomes, which is to say this is where the segmentation begins inside of Drip. I don't think I have. I definitely don't have any tags for executives, divorce, or this market, because this isn't mine. But what I would do is I would jump over to drip and log in, and then I would create some tags. And I honestly, I haven't used this very much. I've got like a simple form up. Oh, here. Looks like we'll just go over to subscribers, click on tags, and add some tags, right? And so what would we do? We would create what was it? Stay-at-home mom. Just call it that. What was the other ones? Divorced, college grad, and executives. Divorced, college, oh, probably want to make it all one word, right? College grad and executive? Yes. Executive. All right, and so what I'm going to do here is come back over and, no, let me see what happens if I just do a refresh on this page. Because I don't know if it pulls it down. Yeah, look at that. How simple that was, right? I just jumped over into drip, created a few tags, and now I'm going to come over here, and executives is going to get the executive tag. Divorced will get the divorce tag. Stay-at-home mom will get that one, and college grad will get the college grad tag. So what I did here, just to make sure this makes sense, is this is based on the outcome. So whatever the outcome is, that lead is going to be tagged that, hey, this is the main segment that this person is in, right? Is this making sense to everyone how this part works? And Chris says this is so easy because drip is the most excellent. So it's real simple. Obviously, I don't know if I'm making a good case for drip over here, but it seems like it. I mean, that was pretty easy. So anyways, so now what we're going to do is we're going to either tag the questions and answers, or we're going to create custom fields in drip so that the field contains the lead information that's being filled in over here inside our segmentation funnel. I personally, and this is going to, you may be different, I personally like to add certain things to the field. I don't like using tags any more than I absolutely have to. Like, I like the idea of tagging outcomes just because it's simple. And it can be used for different things. Like I can launch a campaign or an automation using tags. But for things like, are you male or female, I would like that to actually be a field, right? And so let's see what I forgot what some of these questions are. What's your biggest challenge? So that is going to be the segment. So we've got that taken care of. Yeah, so like age, for instance. I wouldn't use tagging for an age. I would create a field inside of drip for body part. Like I would come over here and create a custom field in drip that says, I don't even know. Don't be thinking weird thoughts on this body part. I don't remember what that was for. I know it was for an example, but looking at it without context, kind of creepy. So I'm going to come back over here. I'm going to actually hit save. Oh, I'm going to hit. If ever you get in a situation like this where you don't have something and you need to do like a refresh, just delete the one thing. And I'm going to hit save. And then one day this will come up and we'll all be super excited about it. All right. So what I'd like to do here is, like I said, I just came over here and I created the age custom field. So then I'm going to come down here, add mapping. I'm going to grab the age question, and I'm going to grab the custom field, and then I'm just going to put the ages in here, right? And so do you guys get what I'm doing here? So the reason I like something like this, instead of having it as a tag and having it as a field, I may want to use this later. Hey, in my email, if I'm coming out, hey, we know that women in their, insert field, right, 60s or 20s or whatever, like these kinds of shoes or whatever, have this kind of look. So this is why I would do a custom field for this question. I'm going to hit, we can go in and do another one. We can do, what's this next one? What is your color season? Then we would just go in and do the same thing we just did here. And you would do that for each of the questions, so that based on what they answer, you're either using a tag or a custom field and applying that to this lead after they go through your funnel. So instead of just sending name and email, now we're tagging them with the segmentation. We're applying their color, their whatever their color season is. We're applying their age range, and then any other question that we decide to ask, like color, personality. Is this making sense to everybody? So when we send this stuff off to Drip so that we can start email marketing them, we know a lot more about this person than just their name and email address, right? We have that full customization ability now based on them telling us this info as part of them going through our segmentation funnel. So that's going to equal a lot more relevant content coming out of our marketing from email, and obviously anything else that we plan on doing, instead of just one size fits all stuff and hoping that it converts. So this is how, I'm going to just delete this one. So this is how you connect and send information to your email service provider if you're using direct integration, one of these 5 service providers. Chris asks, so this adds the field to my subscriber, and you can add the field into the emails as well. That's exactly right. That's why I like using fields. You could do both. If you wanted to do tagging, you could tag them. In these cases, I can see the case being made for tagging and using the field mapping. But when you're using the field, you can actually use that information in your emails, right? So that's how this part works. Now, there's a lot of people, like how many people, I know we have Steve up here, uses Convertkit. Do we have any others, anything else that you guys are using that is not on the list? Like anyone using Aweber or GetResponse or anything like that? I'm going to show you guys how to do that. Okay, yeah, we have a GetResponse. All right, so to do that, if you don't have Drip, MailChimp, Infusionsoft, or any of those, what you're going to do is you're going to use, instead of direct integrations, here, we're going to use Zapier. And if you're not familiar with Zapier or how Zapier works, Zapier is a web app connector software. So what it does is it connects different web applications to each other. So in this case, bucket.io obviously is a web application, right? And so is your email service provider. And since we're 2 different softwares, we need a way to talk to each other, and that's where Zapier comes in. So what Bucket does is when someone comes in and completes your segmentation funnel, starts filling in, answering your questions, whether it's a survey or a segmentation funnel, what Zapier does, or what Bucket does, is they send everything that person told you about themselves. We send that to Zapier, and then Zapier takes that and gives it to your email service provider in the way that specific to them, right? And so that's why instead of just having 5 different services that we connect to, we can pretty much have, hundreds. So even if you use some, crazy, no one's ever heard of it email software, as long as Zapier has heard of it and connects, then you can connect it to Bucket. I have one question here, and it's a good question from Chris. It says, I have a couple of DDS connected through Zapier. Can I edit those and reconnect with Drip? Absolutely. You can just go in and if you just turn on the direct integration, it'll start sending it directly. And then all you got to do is go into Zapier and just turn off the Zap. See, that's the thing too, is that if you have more than one email service provider that your leads need to go to, like some people, for instance, need to send information to like their content management systems. I think one was Kajabi, and I think you can send some basic information from Bucket into Kajabi, but then there's other little things that you can send to, like your calendar or things like that. And you can use that. You can have your Zap going at the same time as your direct integration if you want to. But if you're just flat out moving from an integration that you have set up through Zapier, you can just turn that off inside Zapier and put it only do direct integration. But anyways, so where was I? Oh yeah, I was telling you guys what Zapier does. So it connects the two, right? And so if you've got something, like in this case, I think, what did Steve have again? It's on the tip of my tongue. I saw it. Convertkit. Thank you, sir. Steve's got Convertkit. So how would you connect Convertkit to Bucket? Well, you use Zapier. And the way we do that is we come over here and we click on this integration next to the Zapier. This is the Zapier logo, by the way. We click on that, and then we come down here, we add an integration. And then you'll see this pop up. It'll always say continue with a test lead, all right? And so we'll click on continue with the test lead. And then what's happening now is that it's taking us over to Zapier so that we can do the connection, all right? And if you're logged in, it'll take you straight to it, and you can connect it in there. Actually, let me log out of this guy's account and log into mine. Here, I'm just going to start over from scratch because I want you to see what it looks like if you're not logged in. I'm going to close this, and I'm going to click Add New Integration, continue with the test lead, and it'll tell you to sign up. But if you're already signed up, all you've got to do is actually log in, I think. Log in. Is it really? That was the only option. The Zapier page has changed a little bit, I think, over the last week or so. I think they did an update. So what I just basically went and did it again after I was logged in. All right, so we're going to explore Bucket on Zapier. And, well, I'm going to hit make a zap. And the trigger, in this case, is going to be bucket.io. And then, in this case, since we're using a segmentation funnel, I'm going to choose New Segmentation. And I'm going to hit Save and Continue. Then I'm going to connect a Bucket account. And the way that you connect your Bucket account is you come back over into Bucket, and you click on your name up here in the top right, so right next to your face. If you put your face on here, which you should, so you can always look at yourself. And then what you're looking for here is you're going to grab your API key. All right, I'm going to grab that. Don't ever click this button. What this does is it creates a new key, and if you've already got it connected, it'll break whatever you have connected. So just grab this, come back over into Zapier and hit Connect Account. I'm going to paste that in right here. I'm going to hit Yes, Continue. And now I've got a bucket.io account added. Now, you shouldn't, once you add this in, you shouldn't have to do it again for whatever reason. And it may be just because I logged into a different account. I don't know. But you should only have to do it once. I'm going to hit Save. And then this is where you're going to grab your segmentation funnel. And we're using the one we built on 12.5.17. This is why, again, super duper important to name your segmentation funnels in your surveys in a way that you can understand. Actually, real quick story. Yesterday, I got a call from someone that was having problems with Zapier. And when we went to look at it, I was like, we went to go into Zapier. She was like, it doesn't work. I copied it over and it isn't working now. It used to work and now it doesn't. And we went to look, and when I said, okay, well, let's select your funnel name, and we did the drop down, you see where it says like here, copy of Madden offense quiz? Hers was like copy of. It was like copy of all the way to the end. And it turns out it was the wrong one. Because there was one more with one more copy of that you couldn't see, and so that's why it wasn't working. So the first step in that was to go rename it, then come back. So guys, be super mindful of that. You know, if you want to save yourself, you know, if you like your hair and you want to keep it in your head and don't want to rip it out, be smart about your naming, because it will come back to haunt you if you just let it go. And the more you add, the crazier it'll get. All right, so that was my little warning for you, little pro tip there. So I'm going to hit continue. And you know, it says, always says, make sure you have at least one recent segmentation created. That's remember it said the test lead before we click to come over to Zapier? That's what that's about. So I'm going to do a fetch and continue. Test is successful. And now we're going to hit continue. And we're going to go to the action step. And on the action step, we're going to add Convertkit. And so what we're doing here is we're going to add subscriber. And I think on Convertkit, I believe it's add subscriber to a form. The way that they're set up, it's kind of, actually, I think there's even another step on this one. We'll talk about that in a second. But the main action is to add the subscriber to a form, right? It's like as though they were filling out a form through ConvertKit. I'm gonna back out of this one real quick because this is the only one I've ever seen that does this. In most cases, the action step is going to, like, let's just do active campaign just so you guys can see. What it'll do is it'll say create update contact, right? If we do, let's see, Aweber, create subscriber. You guys see what I'm saying? So most of them says create subscriber, create update subscriber. The ConvertKit, I think it's pretty much the same, but it just says, what was it again? Add subscriber to a form. So this is what you're looking for when you're adding your action step in. You're going to add a subscriber, right? And then you're going to save and continue. This is where you would come in and connect your ConvertKit account to Zapier, okay? And then once you add that stuff in here, now you'll have access to sending the lead over to ConvertKit. Since I don't have an account with ConvertKit, what we're going to do, just so I can show you what the next step looks like, is we're going to do a create update content. This is for ActiveCampaign. Even though we have ActiveCampaign direct integration, I want you guys to see this next page, so you can see what you'd be looking at if you were to add yours to Zapier. Because again, like I said, most of these are all going to look identical on this page here. Because what you're doing now is kind of like how we had done inside a bucket earlier. We're going to add people to our email service provider. So we're going to choose our list. Do I have a list? Yeah, we have this list. We're going to choose the email address. Oh my gosh, why did I do that? We're going to add the email address. And so what you do is you just hit email. What I did is I came over here and I clicked this little drop down thing, and we chose email. And you'll always see, it'll always have this test lead in there. It's always called Ryan Richards at bucket.io. Then the first name is always going to be Ryan Richards. If you collected a phone number, you could add the phone here. If you want to tag your lead, you would tag it here. What you'll have to do on these is, well, there's two things you could do. You can come over here and add your outcome. Or you could just type in a tag. Like, so for instance, if I wanted to make sure every lead that came through this funnel, what did we call this funnel again? It was like shoe worship. That's not what it is, but it's what's on my mind. So it would be shoe worship funnel. Like if I wanted everything to be tagged with that, I could just type that in, right? And so you could have like that tag in there. You could also put, another tag. You can also put your outcome if you have your Zapier tag set up, which I'll show you guys here in a second. And then again, remember how before we had our custom fields? We do the same thing here. We would just come through, but instead of choosing it inside a bucket, we're just doing the same thing over in Zapier. Is this making sense to everybody? Awesome. Get a couple of yeses. I got a yep from Chris, who's just excited about drip. Awesome, Steve. Good. So this is how you would set that up. Then once you're done setting up the lead, you hit continue, and then Zapier will show you what the lead will look like when you're going to send it over. So just imagine you're looking at leads, you're deciding who's best, who's not, who you're going to email, where they're going to go, and that's what this lead will look like when you're done. And so you want to make sure everything is filled out the way it needs to be, and then you're going to send your test over to ActiveCampaign, or not ActiveCampaign. You'll send a test over to whatever Convertkit, whatever your email marketing service is, and then once you get this, the test successful. You hit finish, you name your Zap, name it. What I would typically tell you to do is name it the funnel, right? So I would call this the shoe worship funnel, right? So, and I would probably spell worship right. Turn that bad boy on, and you're off to the races. And so what happens though, just so you know, and I want to point this out, there's a couple little troubleshooting things here. So let's say you go set the Zap up, right? And you go click on, you're like, oh, I just want to see if this thing works. And so you come back over to Bucket, you click back because you don't, you want to get back in your funnel, and you're like, you know what, let's test this thing out. Let's go see if it works. And you go hit preview, and you walk through your funnel, and you're filling it in. You're like, oh, I can't wait to see what email. Can't wait till this thing's ready to go. You fill in your email address, and you get ready to take a look. It goes to the page, you're excited, and you go sit and start refreshing your email, waiting for it, and it doesn't come. 5 minutes goes by, you're refreshing like crazy, and still no email. Bucket doesn't work. No, silly, Bucket does work. What happens is, when you're in preview mode, it doesn't send any lead data to Zapier, okay? It only starts sending lead data to Zapier once you've published. So I only bring this up because I've heard it, I don't know, probably somewhere close to 100 times. When we go look, I'm just like, hey, you haven't even published this thing yet. So it has to be published before you can start testing the lead information that gets sent over to your email service provider. Okay? Does that make sense to everybody? Good. Did you guys like my impression of the angry bucket's not working voice? That's right. Okay. So, what have we done so far? We have connected and configured Bucket to a direct integration, right? That was simple. Connected it to Zapier. A little extra steps there, but you got to admit, once you know how to do it, it's pretty simple. There's a few extra steps in there. There's some places to get lost. If you've never used Zapier before, trust me when I say I completely understand it. If you're looking at it like, oh God, I'm gonna have to watch the replay on this at least 3 times. I promise you, it's not that hard once you actually set it up, right? It's just that instead of just learning Bucket, now you got to learn a little bit about Zapier and connecting and all that. But it's pretty simple. All right. So now that you're connected, what you want to do now is you want to add your Facebook pixel. Especially if you do the only reason you would do it is if you do any advertising on Facebook, you need to put a pixel on everything that you advertise. Right? So that's just kind of pro tip number 2 for the day. And the way we do that is we come over to this Facebook icon here, click on that, and you turn on your integrate Facebook pixel and you paste your pixel code here. Now, I'm not going to go into digging around in my ad account and showing you guys how to navigate Facebook because honestly, people have different ways of getting into it. Like personally for me, I go to Business Manager, I find the account that I want the pixel for, I go to it and I grab the pixel. But here's the thing I do definitely want to point out to you. What you're looking for here is the full embed code for your pixel, not the ID, the full JavaScript code, okay? And you paste that in here, and so what happens once you paste that in is it'll immediately start tracking the audience that comes to your segmentation funnel. Now, once you've done that, your job is not quite over. What you need to do is you need to create these pixel events for each answer that you plan on running ads to. So if you want to advertise to somebody based on the way they answer their question, then you will set you'll set this up here. So for instance, we'll just leave that turned off because most times you don't want to turn on all questions. I mean, you totally can, but like in a case like age, in my 20s and 30s, you can handle all that from Facebook. So a lot of times I won't turn that on. But definitely for something like this first question, right? Like this is the main segmentation question for this funnel. So we definitely want to do and just leave the view content on for your questions. And then what you're going to want to do is tag each one of these responses in a way that makes sense. So like this one would be executive. And divorced, and stay-at-home mom, and what was it? What was the other one? Grad, I think. Anyways, what I'm doing here is I'm setting these variables up. I'm tagging it based on their answer, so that in Facebook, once people start answering these specific questions, I can call that up as an audience and deliver ads to that specific person, right? So let's say I have an audience, I think this specific offers aimed at women. So let's say I've got a campaign in Facebook that I'm, doing retargeting for my segmentation funnel, right? And I've got an ad group or an ad set in each one of those. Is Facebook ad set or ad group? I think it's ad group. In each one of those groups, my audience is the person who is an executive. The audience that I've chosen for that ad group or ad set is executive. I've got one for divorce. I've got one for stay-at-home moms and one for grads, right? So I've got these ads that are going directly targeting these people if they didn't buy my offer, right? And so you're able to customize and build your audience based on the answers that they give you inside your segmentation funnel. And here's where you set all that up, okay? Another thing that you can do is turn on outcomes. And then for each outcome, you can drop a conversion pixel. So just you're calling it a lead. So when someone completes and gives you their lead information, you can convert them to a lead and then tell Facebook that converted by choosing this the lead or purchase or whatever one of these you want to use. Complete registration, whichever one you want. Is this making sense to you guys, how this works? Cool. I'm not gonna keep going if it doesn't make any sense. So once you've added, I'm just gonna turn this off because I don't have like all the stuff filled in correctly. But once you've done that, your next step is to add your Google Analytics. Again, if you're running traffic to anything and you do Facebook advertising, you want Facebook, you want your pixel on there. If you're paying for traffic or you want to check your organic stuff, always make sure you've got your Google Analytics installed. And it's the same thing here. All you've got to do, turn on Analytics and paste your analytics code. Don't paste the ID, paste the full-blown tracking code here. And you can do the same thing. You can actually fire off an event each time someone answers one of the questions so that you can see. Think about it like this. Think about it as if you were looking at Google Analytics and you were trying to figure out what pages people were going to. It's the same thing here. You just create the category, let's just say categories questions, and then you tell them what happened on each one of these pages. So based on what they answer, you put that, you give it that label, and so that you can see what questions were answered most inside your analytics. You'll have that reporting, but if you're paying for advertising and you want to figure out what conversions, what dollar amount is attributed to which responses, you'll come in and set all of that stuff up here. And then track it inside your Google Analytics. The difference between tags and values, the tag tells you what the response is. Like, so tag is where you would put the response. So in this one, the tag for Facebook would be ladder, single, stay at home, and graduate, right? So that would be the tag, so that you know which audience is which. The value is, it's kind of weird. It's like a dollar amount. So you would just put how much that value of that lead would be. And what I usually do is just put a 1. But you can even put a 0 if you want. Does that make sense? Cool. All right, I'm just going to turn this back off. The last thing here is UTM variables. I really don't want to get too much into this right now because you don't need this to publish. But I just want you to know that this section is here. If you're using external thank you pages, honestly, I would go ahead and just turn this on and append responses and lead capture information, because in your analytics later on, you can always use this stuff there too, okay? So you can put your UTM tags and put the value for each of these, so that later on, if you wanted to go into analytics and say, okay, I want to see everyone that came in under the UTM tag of personal style, right? I want to see what they said, and so on. But again, I don't want to go too deep here, but I would just, if you're sending out to external pages for your thank you pages, consider just turning these things on, and then you can use that stuff later to your to help you even more with your tracking. Turn this off right now, though. I don't know. It's universal something. Steve asked, what does UTM stand for? That's definitely a question for Google. It stands for it's some kind of universal tag manager or something like that. That's probably not what it means. But basically, it's those things when you click it, it says campaign ID equals source equals. And then so the reason you use those is because Google Analytics can take that and show you more information about your traffic. But you'll definitely, if you want to know exactly what it stands for, just hit that Google button. All right, the finishing touches. So let's go back in real quick. We're about 45 minutes in, and let's do some finishing touches on our configure screen. The number one thing, what did I say, is rename your funnel. Please, I'm like holding up the prayer hands right now for you. Please, don't be the person with the 6 or 7 copy ofs trying to figure it out which one is which later on down the line. You don't want that. Trust me, it's a nightmare. So just come in here, hit configure. First thing you do is rename. And this internal name doesn't really matter because you never see that anywhere. The meta information, super duper important, because this is what people will see when you paste the link to your funnel on social media, sometimes in email, and on forums or wherever you plan on advertising. Just consider that it's very likely that almost every platform these days pulls this social tagging and displays the information to the people who are going to see the link, right? And if your thing says customized outcome segmentation funnel, I promise it's going to be a dramatic hit to the amount of people that are coming. Your volume is going to drop like crazy. There won't be very many people clicking. So what you always want to do, I talked about this a little earlier, you always want your title to be what they're going to get. So what was this one again? What did we say they were going to get out of this? It was like look your best and define your personal style, right? So this one would be something to the effect of get your personalized style. Definition, right? I don't know, that's probably not the best, but you see what I'm saying. Like, you're going to click this link to go get your personalized style definition, your style defined, whatever the big benefit is, right? And then in the description, we'll just say something to the effect of take this assessment and get the thing. What was our and take the guessing out of dressing. Finally, take the guessing out of dressing. And so now you've got yourself a tight, punchy little link. What I also recommend is definitely, if you're using a template, come here and delete that, because it's going to drive you crazy. It's already driving me crazy when I see these images all over my thing. And then just put an image that best fits your, like a good, catchy image for this funnel, right? Because that will be the image that pops up when someone whenever you paste the link on a social media or any other platform. Okay, then hit the save changes, and now I can just hear some of you asking, well, what link is he talking about pasting? Well, guess what? That is the last step, the publish. Once you publish, you'll be given a link that you can go out and promote. And the way that works is once you hit, what I just did is I hit publish, and you can come over here, and what most people do is they just keep this full page, but you can come in and change, have Google or Bucket spit out some code if you want to use any of these other formats. But if you just want to use the full page, just leave that there. Then come down here, choose your domain. If you use a custom domain, it'll be on this list. So you see I've got one on custom domain here, but the rest are just the Bucket ones. I'll click that, and then I'll slide this thing over to publish, and looky here. Bucket generated my link. So now all I got to do is go out and share this link with the world and have them come and take my segmentation, go through my segmentation funnel, become my leads, go see my sales presentations, and send my messaging to them based on what they told me is their issue by answering these questions, right? And that's it. Once you're published, from there, obviously, well, that's not it. I say that's it. But now the hard part starts. Now you got to see, okay, well, this is working, that's not working, this is not working, that seems to be working. So from there, you need to be using the reporting to kind of keep an eye on your funnel. And the way you do that is you just click on analytics for whatever, your funnel, and use the information there to guide you to make your funnel better and better and better and better until the thing's converting like the best funnel of all time for you, and just sit back and cash the checks. Because that's how real life works, right? So I have a question. Do you ever need to edit HTML or CSS in Bucket? Yeah, I mean, you do. So when you use the templates, it's not so much, but you can. So let me click on our funnel here and just show you. You do that in the design section. We talked about this, I believe it was last week. But if you come in design and you hit this advanced customization, you can change colors of stuff all up in here. If you don't use a template, there's like a color picker that you can use. But using the template, you kind of have to come in here and play with this. But it's real simple. I mean, you see the color, right? You just click on it, and then just change it to be the hex of the color you're looking for. But you very rarely will have to do this unless you absolutely, positively, absolutely must change a color or something. You can do that here. Yep, in the design section. All right. So, a couple things to remember. I thought about these when I was making this presentation. I was like, what are some things that we definitely have to make sure we remember? Number one is that even when you're using direct integration, the email is not added to your email service provider immediately. It usually takes between 5 to 10 minutes. I think on Zapier it could take up to 15 minutes. So you never want to say, hey, I'm instantly going to email you, because that's just not what will happen. The only time you can ever get direct email with an email service provider is if you're using their form, so that it just goes straight into their system. And both the case of Zapier and with the direct integrations, we're not using their form, we're using the API. And so it takes a few minutes to rotate through and send all that stuff over. So just keep that in mind. So what I always say on these segmentation funnels, and it seems to me like it really works when you point it out. On the opt-in page, I'll say, hey, give me your email and I'll send you the thing, right? To your email. It'll take a few minutes, but I will give you instant access to part of that thing so that you can start solving your problem right away, right? So that way you get that email, like they know why they're getting an email from you, and you're setting that expectation. All right, so that's just one thing to remember. Also, if you're going to add a custom domain, it takes 24 hours once you add it in to Bucket, if you've configured it all correctly inside of Bucket and inside of your DNS, which the instructions are all in Bucket. You can, it's easy to find it and follow them. But once you do it, it takes 24 hours. So don't freak out if you're sitting there and the button says red and you can't find the domain in your list. Remember on Publish, we had that list of domains. If you can't find yours there yet, and you 24 hours, it hasn't been 24 hours since you added it, that's why it takes 24 hours for it to be added in. You guys probably wonder why I make such a big deal out of this, but don't forget to rename your funnel. If I could, I don't have enough fingers to count the number of times the problem has been solved by simply naming the funnel. You know, a lot of times it happens way more than you would even imagine. We're in the wrong funnel just because we don't know which one we're supposed to be in. It's a thing. It's real life. That does happen. So don't forget to rename it. And then again, like I told you before, use reporting to dial in your funnel. I tell everyone, if this is your first segmentation funnel, and a lot of people it is, you know, there's not a lot of software out there that does what Bucket does, right? I mean, there's some that does some of the similar functions, but for a lot of people, segmentation funnels, it's the first one. And when I tell everyone, if it's your first one, if you get the questions right, you're like 90% of the way there. People will answer those questions, but then you'll start seeing drop-offs. Let me jump back over to Bucket so you can see what I'm talking about. So, because I actually have a good example. I brought this up on the webinar earlier. So, for example, I launched this assessment, you know, for a client, you know, it was like a few weeks ago, and when it first went out, it was converting at 5%. We had one opt-in who said, you know, it was super cold, nightmarishly cold traffic, the coldest traffic that you're ever going to send. And you see we have one here converted 11. We had one converting at, you know, a whopping 0%, 1%. So it was really bad, right? What we determined by following it and kind of like just looking at the numbers where people were falling off, 11, you see I got one here at 11%, one here at 15%. Finally figured out by just, you know, making changes how to get, you know, almost everyone who went through it to the end, and how to get, you know, at this point, at this one, it's converting at 25%. I still think we could do even better than 25. I think we can get it probably 35, 40% with just a few, you know, tweaks to it. But the idea is you get it up, get it out, get some traffic to it, figure out what's not working, and what you can do here, just so you can see, you get inside these reports, you can kind of start, you can follow and see where people are dropping. Like, okay, so this one, for instance, you see like 95%, 96, and 100%, right? Well, before, when we were getting like really crappy results, let me click on this just so you guys can see. You know, this one, 63% were falling off at the first question. Like, how are you going to get anybody to opt in if no one's answering the first question? And so what we had to do is kind of go in and change up some of the, you know, some of that, and also obviously the rest of it as well, right? I mean, we had 76%. You want super high numbers at least going through to get to the opt-in, and so so like I said, use this reporting, use your analytics reporting to dial these things in. It's not ever going to be that first, unless you're just like, you know, Mr. Awesome himself. You're going to always be coming in, okay, why is this one not, why is 63% of people falling off on this question? And then you'll figure it out. You'll get it, you'll dial it in, and then you'll get it to this one where it's, I mean, literally 95%, 95%, 96%, and 100%. Pretty dramatic increases, right? We never would have known if we hadn't launched it, So, anyways, that's why I always say use the reporting to dial this thing in. Just get that first one up, though. You saw what we did here. We used an ugly image. We just kind of slapped some stuff together. We took the raw information and we created it and launched it. So I'll get off my soapbox on that. That's one of the big things, guys, is just get it built and then use the reporting to make it better and better and better. So it looks like some questions are coming in. Now is a good time. Before I start answering questions, it's already 5 o'clock. Oh my goodness, I talk so much. So what I want to do first, does anybody want a link for a one-on-one call? Does anybody want to schedule that? Want to talk to a bucket specialist? Anybody? Going once, going twice. Yes, okay. Well, I've got one. Anybody else? Oh, I guess I'll go ahead and put it in here. Oh, looks like 2 people. Well, don't knock anyone over trying to get one of these free one-on-one calls to talk to somebody about getting your funnel up and running. All right, let's do this. I will post this right here. Can you guys let me know in the chat if you see this link I just put in? Just want to make sure it's in there for everyone to see. Good. You're welcome, Valerie. All right, thanks, Keith.